If jazz theory feels like a confusing maze with all these different chord symbols and chord names and scales and modes and all these things that you're not familiar with, I've got news for you. In this video, I'm going to demystify jazz theory and make it accessible. So we're going to start from the very basic scale and build onto the chords, chord progressions, chord extensions. We're going to alter chords, and before you know it, you'll fully understand the theory behind the songs that you love to play. So let's get straight into it. Let's start with the C major scale. It's got 7 notes, so C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. So these are the 7 notes that make up the C major scale. Normally when we play it, we also add the C at the top. Okay, so there's your C major scale. We number each note of the scale using Roman numerals. So this is number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. These notes with the numbers also have functional names. So this is the tonic, supertonic, the mediant, subdominant, the dominant, submediant, and then the leading note. Let's build a triad on each of these 7 notes of the scale. So if we build a triad on the tonic, it looks like this. So I'm going to call this chord 1. So that's our tonic. And then let's build a chord on the 2nd degree of the scale. So this is chord 2. Then this is chord 3, chord 4, chord 5, also known as the dominant. And for the purposes of this video, that word dominant is one that we're going to be very interested in. And then chord 6, and finally chord 7. Let's talk about the quality of each chord. So the chord on the 1st degree is a major chord. On the 2nd, we've got a minor chord. On the 3rd, we've got a minor chord as well. And then on the 4th, that's a major. On the 5th, we've got a major. And then on the 6th, we have a minor. On the 7th, we have a diminished. So here's another way to think of that, or to summarize that. The major chords in your major scale are chord 1, 4, and 5, which is the dominant. Okay. So 1, 4, and 5 are major chords. 2, 3, and 6 are minor chords. However, 7 is a diminished chord. Okay. So while triads are absolutely fine and more than enough for most styles of music and genres, in jazz, the most basic type of jazz chord is what's known as a 7th chord. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 7th to each triad. So if I go to my first triad, the 7th, if I count notes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th is B. Okay. So if I add the 7th to my triad, this is the 7th chord that I find on the 1st degree of the scale. So this is chord 1, but I'm playing it as a 7th. This is how I'd play chord 2 as a 7th. And let's play chord 3 as a 7th, chord 4, chord 5, chord 6, chord 7, and then we go back to 1. So what I've just done there is I've played the major scale in 7th chords. So I want us to practice this together. I'm going to play a track that I've created, and you can practice these 7 7th chords of the C major scale. Okay, let's try that. I'll count us in. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Going to go 1, then 2, and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, then okay. Another cool way to practice your 7th chords is to play broken chords. So instead of a block like this, we're going to play the notes one by one like this. And then that's now chord 2. And then we go to chord 3, then chord 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, and back to 1. This is going to be very useful for improvising later. So let's play that same track, but this time with broken chords. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So those are our 7 major chords that come from the C major scale. Let's talk about the actual name of each of these 7 7th chords. So the first one, we call this C major 7, and there's a formula for a major 7th chord. A major 7th chord is basically any major chord plus the 7th note of its major scale. So C major plus the 7th note of the C major scale equals C major 7. If I was in the key of D, for instance, I'll just quickly tell you. So here's the D major scale: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1. If I played a D major chord plus the 7th note of that scale, that chord is D major 7. I'll give you another example. Let's try C sharp. So here's the C sharp major scale. Here's my C sharp chord. So there's a C sharp major chord. Here's the 7th note of the C sharp major scale. There's the 7th note, right? So if I play the chord plus the 7th note, that's a C sharp major scale. Okay, I'll show you the final one, an easy one, maybe something like G. So here's the G major scale. So it's all white keys, but the 7th note is a black key, F sharp. Here's a G major chord. If I add that 7th note of the scale, this chord is now known as G major 7. Okay. Hello there, my music family and friends. I just wanted to take a quick break from the video, and I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. Now, really quickly, did you know that about 75% of the people that watch my videos are not yet subscribed to this channel? That means there's a chance that you're probably not subscribed either. So if you're not subscribed, please do me a favor and go and click on that subscribe button. That's really going to help me to continue creating content like this and for this channel to do really well. The next thing I wanted to say was, if you are either a musician or a songwriter who's looking to grow their skills, I would like to invite you to a very special online event. This is called Play Piano Like a Pro. So this is for anyone who's never played the piano, or maybe you've played a little bit, but you really want to develop your skills. In just 90 days, I will take you through step by step from absolute beginner to really sounding like a very decent pro. Then the final online event that I would like to invite you to is, if you are a piano player who's already played and you're probably at an intermediate level, so that means you can play some chords and the inversions, you know your scales, and you can play basic songs in different keys. I've got a jazz program that I'm also running over 90 days that I would like to invite you to, where we're going to learn the basics of jazz piano, chord voicings, jazz tunes, chord progressions, how to improvise, the works. So if this sounds like something that you might be interested in, I am going to put a link in the description below. So please click that link and I will get in touch with you. Okay, so let's jump back into the video. So back to the key of C. The chord that we find on the first degree of the scale is a C major 7. Now the chord that we find on the second degree of the scale is what's known as a minor 7. So this is D minor 7. And the formula for a minor 7th chord is it's a minor chord, minor triad, plus the flattened 7th. Okay. I'm going to explain this maybe on a C, because it's probably easier for you to see exactly what's happening here. Right, so suppose I played a C minor chord. So this is C major, right? And this is C minor, right? We know that the 7th note of C is B, okay? But if I flatten the 7th and I play B flat instead, this chord right here is now a C minor 7. So a minor 7 chord is a minor chord plus the flattened 7th. So back to D, there's a D minor chord and here's the flattened 7th, because the 7th of D is actually C sharp. So here's the flattened 7. Okay. So let's rewind a little bit. The chord that we find on the first degree of C major is C major 7. The next one is D minor 7. On the third degree is E minor 7. And why E minor 7? Because it's an E minor chord plus the flattened 7th of E. The chord on the fourth degree is an F major 7. And why? Because it's an F major chord plus the 7th note of an F major scale. Now, the chord found on the 5th degree, the chord found on the dominant, is simply known as a dominant 7. And the formula for a dominant 7 is it's a major triad plus the flattened 7th. Okay. And it's called dominant 7th because it's got a lot of tension and it really feels like it wants to resolve back to chord 1. Okay, so this is really taking you home. It dominates. Right, so that's your dominant 7 chord. Major triad plus the flattened 7th. Okay. On the 6th degree of the scale, we've got a minor 7. And why minor 7? Because there's A minor plus the flattened 7th of the A minor scale. On the 7th degree of the scale, this chord, there's two common names for this chord. It's either known as B half diminished, or in some cases it's referred to as B minor 7 flat 5. Okay. And why B minor 7 flat 5? Because B minor normally would be this, and B minor 7 would be that, but if I flatten the 5th, so it's a B minor 7, but not with the regular 5th, with a flat 5. So it's B minor 7 flat 5. Some people call it B half diminished. And just to add a little bit of interest to this, I've heard people like Thelonious Monk would see this chord differently. They'll call it a D minor, but with the 6th in the bass. We'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so quick revision: C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G7, or the dominant 7, right? So G7, A minor 7, B minor 7 flat 5, or B half diminished. Okay, so in case there was any confusion, I would like to describe all these chords one more time, but all based on C. Okay, so we said C major 7, or any major 7th chord rather, is the major chord plus the 7th, right? So this is C major 7. The next important chord is a C minor 7, which I described earlier, and to get that you have to play the minor chord plus the flattened 7th. Okay, and the other chord that we covered here was the dominant 7, and we said for a dominant 7 you have to play the major chord plus the flat 7. So this chord right here is C7. And then finally we had minor 7, flat 5. So here's C minor 7, but if we flatten the 5th, now we've got C minor 7, flat 5. What a nice jazzy chord that is. That's where it feels like it wants to go. So that's what we call a half diminished chord. All right. So we've said 7th chords are the basic chords in jazz. Now, there are 3 chords that if we play them in this order, they make up the most common progression in jazz, the most common chord progression. So if we play the chord that's found on 2, in this case we're in C, right? So the chord that's found on 2 is D minor 7. Okay, so this is our 2 chord. And then the chord that's found on 5, our dominant 7, is G7. And then 1, which is C major 7. So if I play 2, and then 5, and then 1, that right there is the most common jazz progression. It's simply called 2-5-1, the 2-5-1 chord progression. 2, 5, 1. Okay. So I'm messing around a little bit with my left hand and with rhythm, but basically I'm just playing the 2, the 5, and the 1. And each of these are 7th chords. The 2 is a minor 7, the 5 is a dominant 7, and the 1 is a major 7. Okay. Let's practice this with the track in the key of C. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Here we go. 2, then 5, then 1. Let's do that again. So 2, 2, then 5, then 1. I want to do that one more time. Okay, so that's basically your 2-5-1 chord progression. So in that example, I was playing all my chords in root position, but what would actually be more effective and actually what would sound better is for me to use inversions. So suppose I start with my 2 chord in root position, and now I want to go to my 5 chord. So what were the notes in G7? I had a G, a B, a D, and an F. Well, I can see I've got D and I've got F already, so all I need really is a G and a B. I see a G right here, and I see a B right here. Okay, so I'm going to use this inversion. So this is how I'm going to play my dominant 7. So I'm going to play 2, then I'm going to play 5, and now it's time to go to 1. I've already got a B there, I can see a G, so all I need is my C and E. Okay, so that's probably a much better sounding 2-5-1. It actually reminds me of a jazz standard called I Should Care. I should care. That's actually how it starts. Okay, so those top notes right there make it sound really cool. Okay. The next thing I would suggest is playing this 2-5-1 progression in different keys. And the order in which I would suggest you practice this is to go down in whole steps. So we've been playing in the key of C, right? So like this. If I'm to go a whole step down, that means I'm now in the key of B flat. So the cool thing about going to the key of B flat is that C is the 2 of B flat. Because the B flat major scale is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so C is the 2 of B flat. So we ended on C, so why don't we start the next chord on C? So I'm going to turn this this major 7 chord into a minor 7 chord, because 2, remember, in a 2-5-1 progression, 2 is a minor 7. So I'm going to make this C minor 7. So we already discussed C minor 7 earlier, right? So this is the chord that you're going to play. Okay. So let me just rewind that exercise a little bit. So we're playing 2, then 5, then 1. Okay. Once you're there, you're going to minorize that chord so that it becomes the 2 of the key that's a half step below. Okay. I hope that makes sense. So, and my key, which is a whole half step below, is B flat. Okay, so I'm in the key of B flat, but this is my 2, because 2 is a minor 7. And then the 5 of B flat is F, right? So I'm going to play an F7. How am I going to do that? I am simply going to play an inversion of F7, taking me to 1, which is now B flat major 7. Okay, so here are those chords again. There's actually a cool thing about these inversions, and this is maybe another way to see it, and maybe it's actually more practical to think like this. So I see a pattern here, because when you play your 2 chord, all you have to do in order to go to the 5 chord is, if you move the top 2 notes down, that's already taking you to chord 5. So if I did that in the key of C, here are my top 2 notes. I simply have to move them down. Okay. And then when you're going to chord 1, you move the bottom 2 notes down. Okay. So that's just a different, but I think very practical way to see the movement of your chords. So you're going, that's the key of C, and then now to the key of B flat. There's the 2. You move those 2 notes down. You move the bottom 2 down. Okay. So once we're here, we can also then minorize this chord. If we make this B flat minor 7. Okay, this is now the 2 of A flat. So I'm in the key of A flat. So there's 2. Remember, if you move the top 2 notes down, that's your inversion for chord 5. And then if you move the bottom 2 down, I'm now in the key of, I'm playing the 1 of A flat. Okay. So here are those 3 one more time. So we've done 3 keys, right? The key of C. Now we go to the key of B flat. There's the 2. There's the 5. There's the 1. Now we're in the key of A flat. There's 2. There's 5. And there's 1. If we minorize this again, we're now in the key of G flat. Again, following my pattern, I'm going to move the top 2 notes down. Now I'm going to move the bottom 2 notes down. Okay, I'm in the key of A flat. I'm in G flat. And then if I minorize this again, I'm actually going to play it up here, because yeah, that probably sounds better. I move my top 2 notes down. This takes me to the key of E. And if I make that minor, I'm now in the key of D. And then if I minorize this, guess what? I'm back in the key of C. Okay, so I've gone from key of C to key of B flat, A flat, G flat, to E, to D. That actually makes a whole tone scale, by the way. So if you keep going down in whole steps, you get your whole tone scale. And we only have 2 whole tone scales, so that means we've covered one of the we've covered half the keys that exist already, just in this simple exercise. Let's play this exercise to a track. So we're going to start in the key of C, go down a whole step until we get back to the key of C. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we're going to B flat. 2, 3, 4. Then we go to the key of A flat. Here's 2, 5. Then let's minorize that. There's 2. We're in G flat now. I'm going to minorize that. We're in the key of E. Oh yeah. Let's minorize that. We're now in the key of D. bottom two notes. We minorize that, and we're back where we started. So if you want to make sure you practice everything, what you can then do is, instead of that, starting that exercise on D minor to G7 to C, okay, you could play the exercise maybe starting with the key of B. So that means your 2 chord is now C sharp minor. So there's your C sharp minor 7 to F sharp 7, and then you've got your B major 7. Okay, so there's 2, there's 5, there's 1, and if you minorize this, this is now the 2 of A, and if you minorize it again, you're now in the key of G. If I minorize this, I'm now in the key of F. And I hope you can see what I'm doing. I started in the key of B, then I went down a whole tone, that means I'm in the key of A, went down a whole tone, key of G, went down a whole tone, now I'm in the key of F. If I go another whole tone down, I'm now in the key of E flat. Okay, and if I make this minor again, guess what key I'm in? D flat. And if I minorize this, this is now the 2 of B. I'm back where I started. And guess what? I've played all 12 keys. Okay, so I'm going to attach a link to that backing track that I was using. So you basically start in the key of C. And then you're back to C, right? And then, once you're done with that, go to the key of B. So you want to know these just like how I know mine. We're back to where we started. Okay, so this takes practice and practice and practice, but trust me, you'll get it. So it might be difficult and new at first, but with a bit of practice, you'll be absolutely fine. Let's talk about chord extensions. So remember we said the most basic chord in jazz is the 7th chord. And we said there's several types of 7th chords. We've got major 7, we've got dominant 7th, we've got minor 7. We even have minor 7 flat 5. Okay, so let's start by extending the major 7 chord. Okay, so here's a C major 7. Okay, and remember the formula for a major 7 is the major chord plus the 7th note of the major scale. So here's C major 7. If I extended my scale, okay, so we know it's already got 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We could call this 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So if we thought of your scale over 2 octaves, okay, what you can then do is after the 7th, you could start adding notes such as the 9th. So if I add this, the name of this chord is now C major 9. Okay, so this was C major 7. If I do this, it's now C major 9. I could also add on top of that the 11th. Okay, so this chord is actually called C major 11. So the major 7 is a major chord plus the 7th. Major 9 is major 7 plus the 9th. Major 11 is the major 9 plus the 11th. If I add again another note, I could add the 13th there. This chord is now called C major 13. Okay, that's quite a rich sound. Okay, very interesting. Oof, yeah. Okay, so that's C major 13. So this is basic theory and this is how chords are named. Let's extend a dominant 7th. The formula for a dominant 7th is the major chord plus the flat 7. So this is C7, right? I could add the 9th to this. This chord is simply called C9. Okay. Remember, it's only C major 9 if we're playing a major 7. But if we're playing the flat 7, we're just going to call this C9. I could add the 11th to it. So this is C11. That means it's my C7 plus the 9th plus the 11th. I could also add the 13th to this. So my C13 is a C7 plus the 9th plus the 11th plus the 13th. Okay. So in theory, this is how this chord is created, but in a practical sense, sometimes some notes of the chord are left out. Okay, and this is what jazz musicians refer to as voicing. And I know that word voicing has got several meanings in other styles of music, but in jazz, voicing simply means rearranging the notes in the chord. So you can say, okay, you know what, for this 13th chord, maybe let me leave out, I might not even play the 11th. Actually, that opens up the sound a little bit. You might even say, you know what, I'm not going to play the 5th either. Oh, that's an interesting sound now. So this is a voicing for a C13. Okay, I could actually play down here and it won't sound too bad. Okay. Okay, so we've extended the major 7. And remember, it was major 7, major 9, major 11, major 13. Then we've extended the dominant 7, so it was C7, C9, C11, and then C13. Okay. Now let's extend the minor 7th chord. So remember, the formula for a minor 7th was, it's a minor chord plus the flat 7. Okay. So we could also, so this chord is known as C minor 7. If we add the 9th, we're now playing C minor 9. If I add the 11th, I'm playing C minor 11. So C minor 11 is C minor 7 plus the 9th plus the 11th. Okay, so there's C minor 11. I could play C minor 13, which is C minor 7 plus the 9th plus the 11th plus the 13th. Okay, but again, I could also voice this. Okay, so I could actually say, okay, I'm going to leave out some of the notes in this chord and just focus on the ones that I feel are the most important ones. Okay, so I might leave out the 5th. Already by just taking out one note, it already feels so much different. Okay, so now that we've done the 7th chord, extended the chord, now we can talk about altering the chord. Okay, so we've got in our chord the root, the 3rd, and the 5th. Okay, and there's the 7th. Sometimes the 5th is altered. By altered, I mean you can either raise it or sharpen it or flatten it. So this chord here is known as C7, but if I raise the 5th of that chord, which is G, this chord right there is now known as C7 sharp 5. Sharp 5 because of that sharpened 5th. Or I could lower the 5th so that my chord is now known as C7. Ooh, I like that. C7 flat 5. So there's C7, C7 sharp 5, or C7 flat 5. And a common use for these alterations is usually that dominant 7th. So suppose I was playing a 2-5-1 in the key of F. This is C7, right? I could alter that 5 chord, or my dominant chord. So imagine if I played, there's that C7 flat 5, and then it takes me there. What a beautiful sound. What if I play sharp 5? Nice. Okay. So with extensions and alterations, you start to hear the jazz sound. Okay. So in this case, I only altered the 5th. I sharpened it, I flattened it, but what I could also do is I could alter the 9th. That's a very common alteration. So I could sharpen the 9th. Nice. Here's a 2. There's a C7. It's C7 with a sharp 9. There's the regular 9th. There's the sharp 9, C7 sharp 9. And then I could have flattened my 9th as well. What would that sound like? So there's C7, right? There's my 9th. If I flatten the 9th, I've got that. So if I played a 2-5-1, I could play my 2 and then, oh, there's C7, flat 9. What a nice sound, right? I could experiment even further and say, you know what, instead of just sharpening or flattening one note, instead of just altering the one note, what if I alter 2 notes? So what if I say on my dominant chord, so there's C7, right? What if I wanted to sharpen the 5th, but then I also said, you know what, I'm also going to sharpen the 9th. Now listen to that sound. So here's C7, sharp 5, sharp 9. Here it is in the context of a 2-5-1 progression. Woo! Nice sound, right? What if I flatten the 9th, but sharpen the 5th? This is just me experimenting here. Oh! Beautiful sound again, right? So, in your 2-5-1 progressions, feel free to experiment with altering the dominant 7th chord. Normally, and I think most jazz musicians do this, so if I see the letter 7 next to a chord, suppose it says C7, what that tells me is I could play that, but I could play an extension, any extension that I want, or I could play any alteration of that chord that I want. Okay, so we've got that freedom to pick and choose what we want to play, how we want to play it, when we want to play it. Okay, so we've said we can alter the 5th, you can alter the 9th. Okay, the 11th could also be altered, you know. So if this is C11, I could raise the 11th, so this chord is like a C7 sharp 11. In some cases it will be called sharp 4. So I could do that, right? That was me playing that, the 7 with that sharp 11 or sharp 4 at the top, which is nice because it then takes me to, what is this chord? I wonder if you can identify that. That's this F major 9. Okay. Okay, so if I go back to the C major scale, I think we've explored the major 7th chords, we've explored minor 7th. We haven't really spoken much about that minor 7 flat 5. Okay. The best way, or the most common application of this minor 7 flat 5 is in the context of a minor key. So suppose, okay, since I'm talking about B minor 7 flat 5, its most common context might be in the context of the key of A minor. Now here, A minor is the relative of C. So the cool thing is, that's an A natural minor scale. Okay, so if I played chords on that scale, there's chord 1, there's chord 2, and you can see chord 2 is a half diminished. Chord 2 is B minor 7 flat 5. So chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, chord 4, chord 5, right? And this chord 5 is an interesting one. Why? Because there are several types of minor scales. In this case, I'm using the natural minor. But what if I was using a harmonic minor? I now have a G sharp in that key. So sometimes in a minor key, your 5 is a minor chord, and then at other times it's a dominant 7 chord. It's a major. So what I mean by that is, maybe listen to this. So here, the sound of that major dominant chord works perfectly because I'm thinking more in the context of a harmonic minor. Okay, maybe if I want more mellow sound, I might have my minor. Okay, so my dominant could be minor, it could be major. Okay, so there is a thing called 2-5-1 in a minor key. So I could play the 2-5-1 progression in a minor key, in which case my 2 would be, instead of a minor 7, it would be a half diminished, a minor 7 flat 5, which then goes to 5, and then goes to 1. Okay, so I just thought I would briefly mention minor 7th, just so that you can understand where that half diminished might be used. If I think of a song maybe like Blue Bossa, there's the 2 and 5, yeah, okay. I'm not playing Blue Bossa in the written key, I think it's in C minor, but I'm just doing that to show you the idea, okay? Or something like Softly as in a Morning Sunrise, 2 then 5 D da, and 2 then 5 da. I'm now using inversions. Okay, so 2-5-1 progression can be played in a major key, and it can be played in a minor key. Okay, so I think that's enough jazz theory maybe to digest in one day. Actually, there's a lot that you could do with just this little bit of theory that I've given you. So you could get started learning some basic jazz standards, whether it's from a lead sheet or just some chords to a song that you know already. Okay, and maybe you can actually say, oh, those are 2-5-1 progressions, let me play them like this. And now you can probably make sense of a lead sheet. So if you see the chord A minor 7, you will know the formula and you can then try those chords out. Okay, so this theory is quite important for the jazz programs that I offer, which I really suggest that you check them out if you really want to take your playing to the next level. This video is brought to you by Next Level Piano. If you would like to learn how to play the piano, sound amazing, impress your friends while having fun at the same time, well, I've got you covered. In my Learn Piano Like a Pro program, which is just for 90 days, I will teach you everything and guide you every step of the way from going from a complete beginner to an absolute pro. All you need is a keyboard instrument and the desire to learn, and this will turn your dream into a reality. If you already know your chords but you want to learn jazz from scratch, then my Jazz and Improvisation Essentials program is going to help you to discover beautiful chord voicings, jazz tunes, and improvisation techniques step by step. So if you're ready to stop dreaming and start playing, then click that link in the description and I will show you how to make music that sounds incredible.